In today's class, we will be looking at the concept of attitude, and more specifically, we will delve deeper into a specific type of employee work attitude, which we call job satisfaction. So basically, we're looking at attitude and job satisfaction. Um, explain this. With respect to the course outline, we'll be looking at the definition for attitude, and this will be closely followed by an explanation for the three components of attitude. Again, we'll also be looking at the relationship between attitude and the way we behave to see whether it is our attitude which influences our behavior or the reverse is true. Moreover, we'll also be considering major attitudes, major job attitudes. So there are a number of them, but for the purpose of this level, a selected few will be considered, which include job satisfaction, job involvement, organizational commitment, perceived organizational support, employee engagement, and so on and so forth. Then at this point, you realize that we must have tackled a number of employee job attitudes or work attitudes, but we will delve deeper into job satisfaction. So we will define once again what employee job satisfaction is, and also we will try to elucidate the possible causes of employee job satisfaction. In fact, we'll even learn how we can measure employee job satisfaction so that in future, if you decide to do a research or a thesis on it, then you know the angle to tackle it from. Then we also consider the outcomes of job satisfaction. So when employees are satisfied, what are the possible outcomes that it can also yield? Finally, we will look at the issue of employee job dissatisfaction and why it is important for managers to be concerned about it. Okay, so by way of introduction, it can be construed universally that a job that fits you is the one that satisfied you. In fact, this is a universal truism which is closely upheld by a lot of research authorities. In the same vein, as the vignette shows, however, what makes a satisfying job is a bit more complex, and we will be delving deeper into it pretty much soon. And what we are trying to say over here is that although many people agree all over the globe that a job that fits you well, in other words, a job that you tend to find yourself having the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities, and you enjoy doing, is the one that satisfies you. But is it all that there is to as far as employee job satisfaction is concerned? So we will be trying to navigate around some of these dilemmas and issues. Now, what factors beside work schedule compatibility and job security affects job attitudes? In other words, in an attempt to understand employee jobs attitude, is it all about schedule flexibility or schedule compatibility? Is it also about job security? So when employees say they are satisfied with their job, can we have a number of explanations behind it beyond the schedule compatibility that they experience and the job security within which they also operate? Very soon we'll be finding some answers to some of these questions. And does it even matter when employees are satisfied with their job? In other words, does having a satisfying job really matter to one, the individual employees, two, to their managers, three, to the organization which they are working for, and four, the society within which they are operating? If it matters, then it pretty much shows that we need to be very much concerned about it. So before we tackle these important questions that have been raised in the preceding bullets, it is important to define what is meant by attitude and then job attitude in that particular. So let's quickly look at the definitional issues as far as attitude is concerned. According to Robbins and Judge, 2017, attitudes are evaluative statements, either favorable or unfavorable, about an object, people, or events around us. In other words, anytime we come across the constructs of attitude, it simply presupposes that we are trying to make an evaluative statement. And this evaluative statement could be positive or negative. Again, these evaluative statements that we are making to is about an object that we are dealing with. It could also be about the people that we are working with. It could also be about an event. So maybe an occurrence at the workplace. It could actually be towards the organization where we work. So a typical example is this. When an employee says that they are very much satisfied with their job, this can be construed as an evaluative statement. And from this statement, we can deduce that the employee is what? Happy. So in that sense, the employee is making an evaluative statement which is favorable towards their organization. Another example could be this. When an employee makes a remark that I like working with a colleague, and they go ahead to perhaps mention the name of the colleague, that I like working with Fred. This is an evaluative statement, all right. And we can further deduce that this is a positive evaluative statement or a favorable one about a person that we are working with. Okay, so primarily that is how an attitude can be construed. So don't forget, in an attempt to explain attitude, we say that it is an evaluative statement, and this evaluative statement could be favorable or unfavorable, positive or negative, about an event, an object, or a person. And in fact, depending on the book that you'll be reading, they are likely to talk about the evaluative statement being about a stimuli. And a stimuli primarily refers to anything that can elicit a response. So an example of a stimuli could be the pay you receive. So that if you are happy about the pay or the salary that you are receiving from the organization, then you can quickly make that remark that I'm very much happy as far as the pay that I'm receiving is concerned. So let's make progress. Attitude reflects how we feel about something. So I'm building it, but at a point in time, you realize that it is more than how we feel. And it is equally about how we think towards that particular something or object. And it's also about how we behave towards it. So when you say that I like my job, you are expressing your attitude towards your work. Okay, in that simpler balance. Now, attitudes are complex in the sense that if you ask people about their attitude towards issues like religion, Shatawale, or the university that they are attending, you may get a simple response as positive or negative, but the underlying reasoning are probably complicated. So when a student says, as for the GTUC, I will never recommend it to another student to attend. This is a negative remark that they have made about the institution of GCCT. But the reasoning behind this particular remark will be very much difficult for you to decode. So we are saying that to fully understand attitude, we must consider their fundamental properties or components. And this brings us to the components of attitude. According to research, attitude is composed of three main components. Attitude is composed of three main components. And what are these components? They include cognition, affects, and behavior. So, once again, anytime an individual or an employee makes a positive evaluative statement or a negative evaluative statement towards an object, people, or an event, this evaluative statement can further be broken down into three main components. And the analogy behind these three components can be traced to the cognition, the affects, and the behavior. Now, so let me quickly summarize the three components before we consider the themes or the bullets I have here. Anytime we make reference to the cognitive components of a person's attitude, we are referring to the thought process or the style of thinking which is associated with the evaluative statement. So, in the same vein, when we make reference to the affects or the affective component of attitude, we are making analogy to how the person feels as far as the evaluative statement they've made is concerned. Then lastly, the behavioral component of attitude has to do with how the person acts towards the object. So in an attempt to evaluate the object, how does the person act or react? The statement that my pay is low is a cognitive component of an attitude, in the sense that the individual here is making a judgment, thinking, or description of, or belief in the way things are. It sets the stage for more critical part of attitude. So when you say my pay is low, it is something that you must have processed through your mind, and you must have come to a conclusion through series of comparisons and judgments. Now, this sets the ball rolling for the affective component. And what is the affective component? The affective component is the emotional or feeling segment of an attitude reflected in the statement. So, I am angry over how little my pay is. Okay, so when someone says that I am angry over how little my pay is, the expression of anger or that sentiment alone connotes how the person is what? Feeling towards the pay or the reward they are being receiving. And affect can also lead to behavioral outcomes. In what sense? The behavioral component of an attitude describes an intention to behave a certain way towards something, towards someone or something. As in, I am going to look for another job that pays better. So, another way of capturing this quotation here, that I am going to look for another job that pays better, is what we call turnover intention. Turnover intention. This is something that the person is proposing to do, but they have not actually done it. And so that is why we construe the behavioral component of an attitude as the intention to behave in a certain way towards someone or something. Okay. Now, so this is also a diagram to further elucidate the components of attitude. So generically, there are three main components, which include the cognitive, the affective, and behavioral components. Now, once again, the cognitive component refers to the thought process, the judgment, or the evaluation that accompanies the attitudinal process. So when an employee makes a remark that my supervisor gave a promotion to a coworker who deserves it less than I did, it simply projects our thinking that the supervisor hasn't been fair to us. So this also further illustrates how the cognitive component of attitude can be manifested. Now, so when an employee starts thinking that they have not been fairly treated in this regard, how will it affect the way they feel? So it can result in an affective component in this regard. I dislike my supervisor. So because the employee is feeling that their supervisor hasn't been fair to them, it affects the way they feel towards what? The supervisor. And how will this style of feeling also influence the way they behave or they intend to behave towards the organization? In other words, the action that they manifest. It could result in a behavioral component such as I am looking for other work. So they are not currently living, but they are still looking. So they have a turnover what? Intention. I have complained about my supervisor to another one who would listen. So they have also embarked on some sort of discussion as a way of blowing their anger or trying for other people to understand the unfairness they are being subjected to. So, in a nutshell, the employee enduring this unfairness thought that he deserved the promotion, which is a form of cognition, and he strongly dislikes the supervisor, which is an affective manifestation of attitude. And he has complained and taken action, which is the behavioral one. And this manifested in the employee discussing with a colleague who will listen, and at the same time, the employee having a turnover what? Intention. So these are the three components of attitude: cognition, affective, and behavioral. Okay. Now, how is attitude related to behavior? In fact, this question of the relationship between attitude and behavior is an ongoing
I know
discussion
why.
in the sense that um, Emmanuel Reko, kindly mute your microphone.
Sorry, sir.
It is an ongoing discussion and it actually predates the lectures we are having now. It is something that earlier philosophers such as Aristotle, Socrates, Euphrates all tried to unravel. Now, early research on attitude assumed that they were causally related to behavior. What I'm trying to say is that previous research held or operated under the assumption that it is our attitude which influences our behavior. That is, the attitude people hold determine what they do. However, Recent research by authorities such as Leon Festinger argue that attitude follows behavior. And this indicates that there could be some situations where the way we behave in a given environment will also inform the attitude that we have towards such an environment. So, depending on the literature that you are reading and the arguments or reasoning underpinning those literature, you are likely to see them making an argument that attitude causes behavior. Conversely, you are also likely to come across literature which will make an analogy that it is our behavior which informs the attitude we have. Now, the cases of attitude following behavior can be illustrated using the effect of cognitive dissonance. And by the way, the issue of cognitive dissonance was put forward by Leon Festinger. So, in the coming quiz, if you are asked that who is the authority responsible for the concept of cognitive dissonance, you should be able to identify that the authority there is what? Leon Festinger. So, what is cognitive dissonance? In other words, when we say a person is experiencing cognitive dissonance, what does it mean? It simply refers to the contradictions that an individual might experience between their attitude and behavior. In other words, when at one point in time you realize that you have perhaps a positive attitude towards a particular event, person, or an object, but the way you are behaving towards the person is rather negative, then these two opposing attitudinal and behavioral temperaments can be construed as what? Cognitive dissonance. And don't forget, we construe it as cognitive dissonance because all these are occurring at intrapsychically. It is something that we are contemplating about in our mind, and it manifests by way of how we behave towards the object or the event. So let's further clarify what cognitive dissonance is. People seek consistency among their attitudes and between their attitudes and behavior. So over here, we are trying to say that when you have a positive attitude towards a stimuli, an event, an object, or a person, then we expect to perceive that the way you feel, think, and behave towards such object will also be what? Positive. Now, anytime there are inconsistencies or incompatibilities between your attitude and the way you behave towards a particular object, then cognitive dissonance is said to have occurred. Okay. Any form of
Hello, sir.
inconsistencies, please, once again, if you want to ask a question, kindly raise up your hand. Yes, Rekon, what is it?
As if you are gradually coming to what I was going to say. So let's go.
So this is the last time I'm going to mention this. If you have a question, kindly raise up your hand so that you do not truncate my flow. All right. Now, any form of inconsistency is uncomfortable, and individuals will therefore attempt to reduce this. What we are trying to say over here is that anytime an individual perceives that the way they think or feel or behave, that is their attitude towards another person or an object, is not compatible with their actual behavior towards that particular event, then it creates some sort of discomfort. And that is where the dissonance is coming from. So when there is a dissonance, people will alter their attitude or behavior, or they will develop a rationalization for the discrepancy. And this makes sense because in the first place, that cognitive dissonance is creating discomfort or some sort of guilt feeling in the mind of the person. So in order to overcome this guilt, they will either alter their attitude to be consistent with their behavior, or they will alter their behavior to be consistent with their attitude, or they will try to rationalize the discrepancy for the two outcomes. Now, recent research found the following results. It was observed that the attitude of employees who had emotionally challenging work events improved after they talked about their experiences with coworkers. In other words, we are referring to employees or workforce who had positive attitude towards their job. But at some point in time, they were encountering a lot of emotional challenges, which could be attributed to bad working arrangements or challenges they were having from their supervisors or co-workers in an attempt to achieve their set targets. So to overcome these incompatibilities, a mere discourse or sharing of what they are going through with their colleagues open up the valve for them to start feeling much better. And this indicates that social sharing help these workers to adjust their attitude to behavioral expectation. So after sharing it and becoming privy to the realities on the ground, they now got a better perception or appreciation of what is supposed to happen as opposed to what was actually happening. Now, any question? So if you have a question, you can ask me now. Yes, Rekon, go on.
So my problem here is that initially when you started, you said something that a research has a research which was done by Leon Festinger says that attitude follows behavior. And you've come to another point which says that when your attitude or when you feel something about somebody or an object or a situation and the attitude towards it does not bring out the behavior towards that particular thing, then it is cognitive dissonance.
Dissonance, yeah.
So the question I want to find out is that if attitude brings out behavior, how can someone have a different attitude for a particular thing and also exhibit a different behavior of that same thing?
Okay.
How
okay.
possible can it be?
All right. So I understand where you are coming from now. Rekon, still with you. Do you like smoking?
Please, no, sir.
Okay, but will you be down to work for a tobacco company?
No, sir.
Come again. You see, the response
No,
you gave me
please.
was not that you strong or confident too. So I'm starting again. Are you a smoker?
Okay. No.
Okay, so you do not smoke, right?
Yes.
But will you be down to work for a tobacco company?
No, sir. I will
Okay.
not.
So if that was the only option available, you will still not do it. You will prefer to stay home, right?
Yes.
That is what you are telling me.
Okay. Okay. Maybe since I have not gotten to that junction yet, and maybe I cannot express the feeling when I get to that point. So I may right now give you a safer answer. But
All
maybe
right.
if I have gotten to that point where there is no other alternative than to work there, maybe a different answer can be emanated.
Okay, all right. From the interpretations I can deduce from your responses, I can confidently say that even though you are not a smoker or you don't like smoking, if that is the only job opportunity available to you, there is no way you will turn it down and go hungry. Or that is even if you have family, you will not be able to take care of them. So that is the sort of dissonance or contradictions we are talking about over here. Assuming a person has in their mind that smoking is bad because it causes cancer, it causes a lot of cardiovascular diseases, and so on and so forth. These days, they even make the advertisement on the harmful effects of smoking explicit, not only on the box, but in the ads as well. Again, you still find people with this sort of negative attitude towards smoking working for the manufacturing firms that are into the production of these tobacco products. And so when we say attitude is leading to a particular behavior and they could be incompatible, this is an example of such a situation. And another example could be that maybe you are the type who abhors texting whilst walking or texting whilst driving. But I can bet my last penny on this that most of you find yourself doing it anyway, even though you do not like it. So anytime you go through some of these incompatible or inconsistent uh, attitudes or attitude and the behavior, then we can say cognitive dissonance has occurred. Please, is it clear? All right.
Yes, sir.
Any other question? Can you still see my screen?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
So how come it is not moving at my end here? Let me try once again. Can you see the next screen? Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So currently, what are you seeing there?
It's the same attitude and behavior continuation.
Okay, very good.
Yes,
very
sir,
good.
it has moved. Yes.
Good. Now, so still on the issue of cognitive dissonance. Like I mentioned earlier on, it occurs anytime there are incompatibilities between two or more attitudes or a behavior or between a behavior and an attitude. Now, so this is trying to throw more light on cognitive dissonance beyond the examples that I just gave. So no individual can avoid dissonance. And research indicates that most people, when you ask them, like Rekun was trying to say, when you ask them whether they are aware that texting whilst walking or driving is unsafe, everyone will tell me, oh, it's very, very bad. And you are likely to come up with a numerous amount of dangers associated with this particular behavior. But all of us do it anyway. These days, when you ask people that why were you receiving a call whilst you were driving, not that they were doing it through their earpiece, so the phone was on one hand and the other hand was on the steer. They will tell you they have now mastered driving, and so automaticity is occurring. But this can result in serious accidents. So again, we are also oftentimes found to be advising people about the troubles that they are likely to encounter anytime they engage in some of these behaviors. but we still find ourselves doing it. So these are some of the instances under which cognitive dissonance or dissonance in general can occur. Now, um, the desire to reduce dissonance depends on three factors. And don't forget, we are saying that when dissonance prolongs, it creates a lot of discomfort in our mind. And all these things might be occurring subliminally and also intrapsychically. So sometimes you might not even be aware that it is going on. It is only when you start projecting it that you realize that, oh, initially I had a negative attitude towards it, but I find myself doing it. Then that is why I'm feeling this particular way. So in our desire to reduce the dissonance, in order to restore comfortability, three main factors become imperative. And this includes the importance of the elements creating the dissonance. So the various elements which are coming together to create the dissonance, how important are they to us? So going back to our texting and walking, is the information we are texting to another party pretty much important than the journey that we are trying to pursue? So that if we can stop at one location and send the message whilst continue, then we will progress. So this is how we weigh the importance of the elements. Then the degree of influence we believe we have over the elements. So back to the texting and walking. Do we have a lot of control over the texting that we can postpone it till we get to the destination? Or can we halt the walking, finish the texting afterwards, then we continue working? So this is how you can also look at it. Then the reward for dissonance. In other words, if we continue testing whilst working, will the reward that will accrue be beneficial as compared to the accidents or the dangers which are associated with it? If it is higher, then we are likely to continue being in the dissonance situation. But if it is the reverse, then we are likely to reduce it. Now, research continues to advance that individuals are more motivated to reduce dissonance when the attitude are important or when they believe the dissonance is due to something they can control. One, the attitude that they are expressing towards the event or the object should be something that they hold in high esteem. Now, if they hold in high esteem, do they also have control over the dissonance which is occurring? Such that if they can control it, then they may be in a position to halt one component which is causing the dissonance and attend to the other, so that later on they can resolve the lagging part in order to do away with the discomfort that's associated with it. Now, we are also going to look at some moderators of attitude relationships. When we talk about moderators, okay, I'm trying to break moderators down. When we talk about moderators between two or more variables, and I said the moderator between a person's attitude and their behavior, we are primarily referring to third variables or other factors which presence help us to explain the relationship between the attitudes proper. So initially, I was explaining attitude and how it may lead to behavior, or how the way we behave may also lead to attitude. Now, research indicates that attitude and behavior relationship is not so direct as we perceive it, but there are possibilities for other factors to be available so that those factors present will help to explain the relationship for us better. So what are some of these moderators? Now, so the first one is the importance of the attitude. So the amount of importance that we attach to the attitude we are expressing could also serve as a moderator, so that if we do not attach so much importance, then it can also influence the tendency for attitude to lead to a behavior. Now, the correspondence to behavior, in other words, how our attitude is directly causing or leading to a behavior, might also moderate the relationship, so that in situations where an attitude cannot be directly traced to a behavior, we will spend so much time and energy trying to explain it, but you end up having a spurious relationship. So initially, I gave an example about an employee feeling that they have not been fairly treated. As a result, that a promotion opportunity was given to a colleague who does not deserve it. Okay. And that feeling led to, that um, attitude led to a feeling of anger towards the supervisor. And it further led to a turnover intention. You see, this scenario that I gave, you can directly link the relationship between the attitude and then the turnover intention. So when this sort of relationship occurs, then the explanatory power between the attitude and behavior becomes stronger. Then it could also be as a result of its accessibility, how accessible, and that is where the control mechanism comes in. Whether you have pretty much control over the behavior which is occurring and the modification of the attitude. Then the presence of social pressures. Are we is the attitude we are forming about our organization out of our own volition, or it is as a result of the influence we are encountering from our peer or our colleagues at the workplace? Now, all these things have a role to play when it comes to improving the explanatory power of attitude and behavior relationship. And lastly, whether a person has direct experience with the attitude. So back to the employee who felt that he was not fairly treated by the supervisor in a situation where a position that was duly his was given to another colleague. Now, in this particular scenario, the individual who encountered it will have a stronger attitude to express, as opposed to trying to explain the unfairness that the person experienced to another party. So the third party who listens to this experience may be able to form some sort of negative attitude, but this sort of negative attitude will be as a result of what? Social pressure or the social interaction they are getting from the first party. So whenever an individual has a direct experience, and this direct experience also influences the favorability or unfavorability of the attitude that they form, then it can also enhances the relationship of the attitude with the behavior. Now, so all these points, have been further broken down. So let's look at them. Important attitudes reflects our fundamental values, self-interest, or identification with individuals or groups we value. And these attitudes tend to show a relationship to our behavior. However, discrepancies between attitude and behaviors tend to occur when social pressures to behave in a certain way hold exceptional power, as in most organizations. You are more likely to remember attitude you frequently express, and attitudes that our memories can easily access are more likely to predict our behavior. So, the attitude behavior relationship is also likely to be much stronger for an attitude. 1 minute, okay? Just a minute. We are not getting any feedback because instead of following what I'm saying, your attention is somewhere. So you did not hear what I said earlier on.
So I just came in. No, I didn't start. I didn't start with
Anyway,
you from.
so it just tells me that you were not following what even the feedback I gave. All right. Can you see my screen moving?
No, sir.
Oh, let me check again. It seems the network. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it has
Yes,
moved.
sir.
Very good. Very good.
Now,
By the way, any question before I proceed? All right. So now we are delving
hello,
deeper
sir.
into yes.
Sir, I was having some little challenge initially when you said when we are at the point of the dissonant or something, we need to rationalize it to remove that kind of discomfort from our minds.
Okay.
And I also want to bring it to the point where you said that if we are in that situation, there are three important factors that will either make us stay in our what is the word? Is it dissonant or I've forgotten the name?
Dissonance.
Either we dissonant, okay. When we place an important whatever we are doing at that time, or whether we have influence on what we're doing at that time, or the reward we are going to receive after we have done whatever we want to do at that point. If we don't do any of those three things, how can we, if we avoid doing those three things, does it mean we have rationalized the dissonance in our mind?
Precisely.
Or what?
So
I'm
rationalization here
okay.
is a defense mechanism that we employ cognitively. So it means that you have tried using other alternatives and they are all not yielding favorable results. And so you try to rationalize to make sense of the dissonance that you are experiencing so that it will reduce the discomfort in your mind. Is it clear?
Yeah, it's very clear.
And that is what I don't know if you came across Sigmund Freud in your introduction to psychology. He calls it defense mechanism, and there are several types of it, of which rationalization is a type of defense mechanism. Okay. Now, so those of you who still have your microphones on, kindly turn it off. It is giving us feedback. So we are now moving to the typologies of attitudes. The first one we are going to consider is job attitude. Beyond job attitude, there are other types of employee work attitude. So let's break them one by one. I would say when we were starting, we said attitude can be defined as an evaluative statement, either favorable or unfavorable, which individuals make about an object, an event, or the people that they work with. Now, these evaluative statements, when we narrow it within the context of the organization and we make it towards the working environment, then we are talking about employee job attitude and I say employee work attitude. Please, is it clear? So the job attitude or employee job attitude refers to the positive or negative evaluations people, let me see if I'm still recording. Okay. Positive or negative evaluations employees hold about their work environment. So within the work environment, there are a number of conditions or issues that occur over there. It could be about your evaluation as far as the salary you are receiving is concerned. It could be about your evaluation about the communication which ensue over there. It could also be an evaluation towards the conditions of service. It could even be an evaluation towards the support you are gaining from your supervisors, your subordinates, or your peers, and so on and so forth. Much of the research has looked at three main attitudes, which include job satisfaction, involvement, and organizational commitment. But there are more than this. So as you start, when you get to level 400 and you are thinking about your thesis, I'm sure most of you are even likely to enumerate employee work attitude beyond these ones, and that might inform your research interests. But there are equally important employee work attitudes, which include perceived organizational support and employee engagement, which we'll be looking shortly. So we are going to start with employee job satisfaction. Job satisfaction um, primarily has to do with the positive feeling about a job resulting from an evaluation of its characteristics. Now, so which means implicitly, job satisfaction is is a positive evaluative statement that employees make about their job environment. Let me take it again. We are saying that job satisfaction is a positive feeling about a job resulting from an evaluation of its characteristics. And I'm further saying that we can comfortably deduce from this explanation that employee job satisfaction is primarily a positive evaluative statement that employees make as far as their job environment or their work is concerned. Please, is it clear? I'm building it gradually. So if you miss this ones, then the remaining ones will be a little bit hazy or confusing for you to pick. Now, a person with high job satisfaction holds a positive feeling about the work, whilst a person with low job satisfaction holds a negative feeling. So, okay, at this level, I wouldn't introduce how they are measured in order to overcome any confusion. Steven, do you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go on.
All right, sir. In your earlier submission, you made mention that job satisfaction is a positive statement.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, you are saying now that you are now saying that we have the high job satisfaction and the low, which is the low job satisfaction, which is negative.
Okay.
So I'm kind of confused because if
Okay.
job satisfaction in the whole is positive, how come we are
Positive.
having negative feeling now?
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Now, so I'm trying to explain it verbally, but if you do not get it, then I will try to draw it to illustrate. Usually, the skills that comes with, or if you are trying to answer items on a questionnaire on job satisfaction, the specific questions or items that are found on the questionnaire counts with a scale of measurement. So one question could be that overall, are you satisfied with your job? And the scale will be ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Now, the strongly agree will amount to 5, and the weakly agree, and I say, strongly agree to strongly agree to less agreement. So the strongly agree will be 5, and the less agreement will be 1. So if a person chooses 1 on the scale, it means that they are expressing a positive feeling, but this positive feeling is what? Low. In the same vein, if another person chooses 5 on this scale, measuring their feeling towards their job, that 5 is positive. All right, but it is what? High. So please, is that distinction clear?
Yes.
Is it clear now?
Not really, sir.
Not really. Okay, anyway, but I will have to draw it. So just give me 1 minute, okay? Please, can you see my screen?
So we are still seeing the board,
Which one? The drawing?
the drawings, yes.
Oh, really? I mean, change it. What do you see now?
Okay. Yeah, it has come now. Job attitude.
So we are specifically on another type of employee job attitude, which is job involvement. So can you see the job involvement there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I can see Reko's hand up. Do you have a question, Reko?
No, sir. No, sir. It's a former, something I did long
I can
time.
also see Steven's hand up. Steven, do you have a question? Hello, Steven.
Sir,
Steven Tete, are you there?
sir, I'm here.
Okay, go on.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, normally I would like you to finish with your teachings before I'll ask questions. But honestly, sir, I must congratulate you and say thank you very much for teaching us this particular subject. I find it very, very useful. And how you even taking your time and explaining everything to us, I will say that you are one of the best people that we have gotten to take us through some of these courses. This
Okay.
is a very practical, life related courses, and the more we get, the better understanding of it. Applying it at the job places will be very easy.
Yeah, I know.
And then the benefit becomes very huge. So I just want to let you know the feedback from my end that you are doing a good job, and God bless you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rekun, for the feedback. Okay.
Yes.
And I am
It's not
taking.
Rekun. It's not Rekun.
Hey,
This is somebody.
Steven. Rekun sound is always up. That is why. Personally, I prefer students to understand the issues and articulate them in their own parlance than they going to chew it for me. And also, I prefer students to get the basics now so that when they get to level 400 particularly and they start working on their thesis, they can appreciate some of the issues or concepts that they have already been introduced to. This measurement issue that I'm explaining to you, it will shock you. You will get to level 400. And when you are asked to design your questionnaire, that is where you will find yourself wanting. So I know what I'm doing, and I believe it will not be in vain, because once you are in academia, or even as you practice at the workplace, some of these things are not alien to our day-to-day occurrences or experiences. So I will also entreat you to keep on focusing and following what I say here, okay? All right. So job involvement. In the field of management or HR, some of the terminologies, when you are asked to explain them, you don't have to struggle at all. We are saying what? Job and involvement. Then you should know that we are referring to how a person has been involved in the day-to-day proceedings of their work. So now they cannot do. Now let's look at what it means. Job involvement refers to the degree to which people identify psychologically with their job and consider their perceived performance level, that is participation, important to their self-worth. In other words, when we talk about employee job involvement, we are simply trying to find out their level of participation in the day-to-day proceedings at the workplace and the extent to which this participation also affects their sense of self. In other words, whether it makes them feel very much esteemed or they feel like a non-entity at the workplace. So just like employee job satisfaction, job involvement can be equally measured from a degree of being low to high. And if I am designing the questionnaire, I usually prefer it to be on that positive continuum. So it will be from +1 to +5. Some might even be from +1 to +7. So that the higher your score, then I will also be able to appreciate the extent to which you participate in decision-making and proceedings at your workplace. So that is basically about job involvement. We are not going to dwell so much about it at this level. Then you can also have organizational commitment. Organizational commitment. Now, organizational commitment can also be construed as the degree to which an employee identifies with a particular organization and its goals and wishes to remain a member. So over here, the extent of identification with the organization signifies some amount of emotional attachment to the success of the organization. So these are the people that will go at great lengths to ensure that the organization succeeds. Now, employees who are committed will be less likely to engage in work withdrawal, even if they are dissatisfied. So this is because they have a sense of organizational loyalty or attachment. Now, because of the emotional attachments that committed employees bring onto the table, there could be a situation where they are even dissatisfied, but they will still ensure that the organization becomes successful or their set targets remain achieved. Okay, so you can have an employee satisfaction as a construct at one end, and you can also have employee commitment as a construct at another end. Now, then you can also, let's look at perceived organizational support. So we are still on employee work attitudes. And this is about the fourth one I am introducing you to, perceived organizational support. So let's pick it one by one. Perceived, perception, organizational support. So as a person, how do you perceive the degree to which your organization is willing to support you in times of need? So that is pretty much straightforward. Perceived organizational support is the degree to which employees... Hey, Abigail, what are you writing on my screen? Semuni. Perceived organizational support is the degree to which employees believe the organization values their contribution and cares about their well-being. Now, an excellent example is Lydia, whose perceived organizational support is sky high, which means it is very high. Because when she was diagnosed with leukemia, her boss and 50 co-workers covered all his medical expenses and stayed in touch with her throughout her recovery. People perceive their organizations as supportive when rewards are deemed fair, when employees have a voice in decision making, and also when they see their supervisors as what? Supportive. So primarily, when we talk about perceived organizational support, we are referring to the perceptions that individuals have about their organizations, as far as the organization's assistance to them in times of need are concerned. Now, research also indicates that perceived organizational support is a predictor. So when we say perceived organizational support is a predictor, it means that it can lead to something. In other words, whenever it occurs, we expect other behaviors to also manifest. But even though it is a predictor, there are some cultural influences. So this indicates that depending on the cultural context you find yourself, perceived organizational context might not necessarily yield the desired outcome you anticipated. And some of these things will become pretty much clearer when I start treating hostess cultural dimensions, which will be in, I think, like lecture, the next 2 lectures. Now, so what is the argument for the ambivalence surrounding perceived organizational support as a predictor? Perceived organizational support is important in countries where the power distance, that is the degree to which people in a country accept that power in institutions and organizations are distributed equally, is low. So please let me recap this part again. In countries where the power distance, that is the relationship or the power relationship that exists between superiors and subordinates, is very much narrow. In such cultural context, perceived organizational support is considered to be what? A predictor. Now, when we say power distance in a particular country is narrow, it simply means that in those cultural contexts, it wouldn't be out of place to find, for instance, the prime minister of the country boarding the same bus with a commoner or a cleaner. It wouldn't be out of place for a subordinate to be making cogent suggestions to the manager of a company. So in such cultural contexts, because the power relationship between supervisors or superiors and subordinates is pretty much closer, perceived organizational support is pretty much important, or it becomes, the power distance in this context becomes a moderator. Now, in low power distance countries like United States, people are more likely to view work as an exchange than a moral obligation. So employees look for reason to feel supported by their organization. In other words, in cultural contexts where the power relationship between superiors and subordinates is very, very low or closer, when people are looking for employment, they are hired on the basis of their credentials. They are hired on the basis of what they bring into the organization, and they are also hired on the basis of their qualification. So such people operate with a lot of confidence. They have a lot of confidence in themselves, and that is why in those contexts they will also expect that the organization where they are working assiduously to assist them to achieve their strategic objectives also support them in return. So it's more or less like a mutual relationship, or can I say a social expectation that they anticipate to get from their company. All right. Now let's move on to the next concept, which is employee engagement. Please, just a minute. Employee engagement. Now, employee engagement is primarily an individual's involvement with, satisfaction with, and enthusiasm for the work he or she does. So when we say a particular employee is highly engaged in the job that they do, it simply means that such people are very much involved, they are satisfied, and they also have a lot of passion with the work that they do. This indicates that employee engagement combines their job satisfaction and their job involvement. And just a minute, okay. So when we say an employee is engaged, once again, mathematically, you can express it as employee involvement plus satisfaction plus enthusiasm. Okay. Now let's go back to job satisfaction and treat it into great detail because that is one of the focal points of today's lecture. So I initially indicated that employee job satisfaction is primarily a positive or negative evaluative statements that employees make about their job characteristics. But how do you measure employee satisfaction? The clue is that you should be able to enumerate as much as possible the factors that make up the job characteristics. So can some of you tell me some of the factors that make up the job characteristics of an employee? Any of you can tell me? Hello, are you there? Yeah, okay, Stephen, go on.
So it is the satisfaction and dissatisfaction.
Okay.
And
so
non-satisfaction of an employee in a job.
Okay. So let me clarify the question.
Or in an employee.
Okay. So please let me try and clarify the question again so that it will become clearer to all of you. Then you give me feedback. Now, I'm saying that when we say an employee is satisfied, it can be construed as the individual making a positive or a negative evaluative statement about their job characteristics. Now, think about the places that you have worked or you are currently working. What are some of the characteristics of the job or the factors over there which you can have a positive or negative, you can make a positive or negative evaluation about? So can you now tell me? Yes, who would like to try?
It looks as if I am still not clear with the question.
You are still not, okay.
Yes.
Now, okay. So can you tell me some of the characteristics of the workplace which will make you happier or unhappier? Or things about the job you do which can make you happy or unhappy?
Decent salary can make me more happy.
Very good. So salary or pay is one of the job characteristics. Let me see. Steven, is your hand up, Steven?
Yes, sir. One of them is work safety.
Yes, safety. So health and safety at the workplace.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So that is one of the job characteristics. Yes, Patricia.
Hello, sir. Motivation.
Motivation. So I will tie it into the pay or salary. Or it could also be non-financial motivation, such as recognition or giving hardworking employees some sort of citation. All right. Stephen Blow.
So job security.
Job security. Yes, Martha. Martha.
Makes me unhappy.
Come again.
Paying for utility bills.
So that would be what? Pay, still about the pay. Okay. Elsie,
Holidays.
holiday. So those would be fringe benefits. Okay. Martha, is your hand up again? Steven.
Yes, sir.
Go
Training
on.
and training and upgrading.
Very good. Opportunity for training and career advancements. Johnson.
Sir, getting the job done.
So you mean job performance or your contribution to organizational success?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Prince Asari.
So intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation.
Motivation. Okay, so
Yeah.
that one has already been mentioned, but thank you for your efforts.
Okay.
Let me see. Johnson, is your hand still up? John, are you trying to make a suggestion?
No, sir.
Okay, no, I can see another John. John, is it John Buyo?
I said, yes, please. It's John. It's John. It's John, sir.
Okay.
And sir, please, the condition of the workplace.
Very good.
Sir, please, the condition of the
conditions.
workplace can also determine.
Precisely. Thank you very much. Felicity.
Yes, sir. Promotion.
Promotion. Very good. Promotional opportunities. Rita.
Sir, please, the environment.
Yeah, so the working environment. Okay, thank you all for your wonderful contributions so far. So in an attempt to measure employees' job satisfaction, we can either enumerate all the issues you raised, ranging from the working environment to the pay or salary that you receive at the end of the day. And each of these specific issues that will be raised will be anchored with a scale, so that we will say, to what extent are you satisfied with your pay? Then the scale will follow 1 to 5, ranging from lower level of satisfaction to higher level of satisfaction for the person to circle. Then we'll move on to the next one. To what extent are you satisfied with the health and safety protocols of your workplace? Then the scale will come 1 to 5, 1 being lower and 5 being higher, like I drew over there. That is one way of doing it. Then another way is the summative approach. So we are basically going to look at them quickly. I like the way you are following. Now, according to research, to measure employee job satisfaction, there are 2 main approaches. Will be a church on the screen, but can you see this red ink over here?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
The ones that seems that come across as it's been cancelled.
Yes, I see you are cancelled.
So
yes.
let me quickly clean it.
Yes, sir.
In fact, because I did not do it, I am unable to clean it. So if Abigail can clean it, it will be helpful. All right, so let me continue.
So you mean somebody did it?
And I saw the name as Abigail. Usually you might not be, especially if the person is using a tablet or a phone. Once you scribble on your phone screen, it will appear at my end over here. So it might not be deliberate from their end. Okay. So please, just be cautious. Now, according to research, there are 2 main approaches or strategies that can be used to measure an employee's level of satisfaction. The first approach is what we call the single global rating approach, or the single global rating strategy. With this single global rating strategy, an employee is presented with a single question, which tries to analyze the degree to which they are satisfied with the job that they are doing. And this single question is also accompanied with a Likert scale ranging from highly satisfied to highly dissatisfied. So please, it is just like the one I drew over there, but the scale I drew when I was explaining it. But this time around, the question will come across this way. In general, and I say overall, are you satisfied with the work that you are doing? Then this particular question or statement will be followed with a scale ranging from 1 to 5, where the 1 will be highly dissatisfied, and then the 5 will be highly satisfied. Then the employee is given an opportunity to circle the one which reflects their current experience. The second approach to the measurement of employee job satisfaction is what we call the summation of job facets. The summation of job facets. Now, when we say we are using the summation of job facets approach, it simply means that the HR manager will enumerate all the facets and characteristics which make up the job, ranging from the pay you receive, the communication pattern which ensue within the organization, the relationship you have with your supervisors and subordinates, the health and safety protocols, and so on and so forth. Like all the numerous things you were mentioning to me, they will be enumerated. And each of these job facets will be accompanied with a Likert scale, ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. So at the end of the day, the score for each facet is summed up. So that if, for instance, I am highly satisfied with the pay, so I score pay or salary 5. But when it comes to health and safety, I am highly dissatisfied, so I score it 1. Then when it comes to communication, I am somewhat satisfied, so I select 3. At the end of the day, all these scores for the facets will be summed up. Please, is that explanation clear? Or I should go over it again?
Yeah.
Hey, the year no, is for which one? Is it that it is clear, so I should proceed or what?
Oh, sir, it's very clear.
Go over
Just that
again.
what I want to find out is that if at the end of the day,
Uh-huh.
the total or the summation of the facet
Uh-huh.
are scored,
Uh-huh.
how are you going to relate it to either it has performed better or it has performed
Thank you
bad?
very much. That is a very, very good question. And then so let me try and see if I can illustrate it on, we say. It will depend on the number of facets you are dealing with. Let's assume you have 5 facets. And on each facet, it is ranging from, the scale is ranging from 1 to 5. We can comfortably conclude that the highest score an individual can get, as far as the summation is concerned, is 5 times 5, which is 25. Please, is that one clear? And the lowest score an individual can get on the summation of the facets is 5. Please, is that clear, or I'll have to? Do you want me to draw it before it becomes much clearer? Hello.
Sir, it's very clear. It's very
It's clear. Good.
Yes,
so
sir.
that if the minimum is 5 and the maximum is 25, then what is the average of 25? The average of 25 will be pretty much 12.5. Good. So any score above 12.5, we can say it is towards what? The higher side. And any score below 12.5, we can say it is towards the lower side of job satisfaction. So in future, when you are designing your job satisfaction questionnaire, and perhaps you are dealing with lesser job facets or more facets, this is how you go around it to determine the average and also to know the point at which you can say someone is highly satisfied or someone is less satisfied. Please, is it clear? Is it clear?
Sir, it is clear, sir.
Okay, then let's make progress. So what are the causes of job satisfaction? Anyway, there is even no need for me to go over it. Go through it again. Can you tell me some of the causes of job satisfaction? In fact, they are the same things you raised as far as the job characteristics are concerned. Okay, so the items I have in the notes are not even enough. Over here, I have one being job conditions, and within the conditions, we are looking at opportunities for training, opportunity to experience tax variety, opportunity for autonomy or independence or exercise control, and the nature of the work itself. John Bayo, kindly mute your microphone. John Bayo, mute your microphone. So job conditions can be construed as one of the main causes that may make an employee satisfied or not satisfied with their job. In Ubeka, under the job conditions, I'm treating training, task variety, independence, and control as all conditions within the job and the job itself. And the sort of manager you have at the workplace may also lead to or cause your satisfaction or dissatisfaction, to the extent that if you have a supportive manager, then it can yield higher level of employee satisfaction, and the reverse is true. You can also say the same thing about the pay that you receive. Into salary and only the pay which is here. And you can also talk about the personality of the person. Research indicates that certain personality traits, whenever they are compatible with the job and the organizational environment, it incentivizes the job holder to become what? Satisfied. So, for instance, if you have someone who is very much comfortable working with numbers, working in an auditing firm or an accounting firm, because of the person job fits over here, the person's personality fitting the environment where they are working, they become what? Satisfied. The same can be said about an introvert who is eventually appointed to be the spokesperson or the PR of their firm. Because of their enjoyment of solitary pursuits, they may find such portfolio as what? Dissatisfying. In other words, it will be forcing them to come out of their quail. And that might not come across as something that they fancy. So that is how personality might also lead to job satisfaction. Then corporate social responsibility. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Now, research also indicates that organizations that embark on corporate social responsibility may end up satisfying its workforce. And this is particularly true in contexts where, for instance, the organization is giving opportunity to the indigents or the people in the local community to be recruited or selected into the organization, or they are embarking on some sort of health campaign or health training sensitization program as a way of giving back to the community where they are operating. In such circumstances, individuals that are working in there will see such an organization as an organization of choice, and it can also incentivize them to become satisfied. Now let's look at outcomes of job satisfaction. So when an employee is satisfied with the job that they are doing because, for instance, the pay is good, they have good working or job conditions, such as opportunity for training, promotion, opportunity for them to exercise their level of autonomy, and so on and so forth. What does it lead to? So those are the outcomes of job satisfaction. Now, the first outcome is job performance. Research indicates that there is a positive relationship between satisfied employees and high job performance. So what I'm trying to say over here is that when you are able to incentivize your employees to become satisfied, then we can also expect that it will reflect in their contribution to organizational success. And that is why managers are almost always admonished to satisfy their employees, not only through monetary gains, but it could also be through the working arrangements, such as job enlargement or any form of intrinsic motivation, such as commendation or recognition, simply because it will go a long way to boost their morale and affect their job performance. Then the second outcome of job satisfaction is organizational citizenship behavior. Organizational citizenship behavior. Now, organizational citizenship behavior primarily also refers to the extent to which employees will go a long way to embark on activities or tasks which will not only result in positive outcomes for their colleague employees, but also the entirety of the organization as a whole. And usually the spirit behind some of these initiatives or actions by the employees is not necessarily to gain reward in return. So when we say an employee has higher citizenship behavior, it simply means that even in the absence of reward, such employees are determined to help their colleagues or go the extra mile to do things that will put the reputation of their organization in the positive light. Now, according to research, organizational citizenship behavior comes in two main forms. It can be at the employee level and also at the organizational level. Now, when we say organizational citizenship behavior or citizenship behavior is manifesting at the employee level, the implication is that an individual is engaging in actions which will benefit their colleagues at the workplace. So, for instance, if your colleague or your co-worker is not feeling well or is late for work in a particular day, and for that matter, you cover such a person until they show up, whilst you simultaneously also take care of your own job responsibilities, then this citizenship behavior is occurring at the first level, which is at the co-worker or employee level. Then we can also have it occurring at the organizational level. That is where the intention of the positive action is towards the good image of the organization, but not necessarily individuals within the organization. All right. So that was just by the way. Now let's look at customer satisfaction as an outcome. Research also indicates that when employees are satisfied in terms of their contribution to organizational success or addressing the needs of the customers that they meet, research has shown that employees are able to serve their customers better when they themselves are satisfied with the job that they are doing. And it makes sense. Because if you yourself now you are not satisfied, then you might end up frowning your face even when you are dealing with customers. You are even likely to displace your anger or throw tantrums to minute provocations from customers and so on and so forth. And the next outcome of job satisfaction is what we construe as life satisfaction. And research is indicating that, generally speaking, when employees are satisfied with their job, it can also lead to they being satisfied with other aspects of their life. So we are saying that this is possible because when employees are satisfied with their job, especially when the level of satisfaction is high, it means such employees are working in an environment where there is room for them to, for instance, balance their work life with their non-work life. And so they are able to spend quality time, not only within the context of the organization, but they are also able to spend quality time with their peers outside the organization, their family members, their community, and so on and so forth. So this is the logic behind life satisfaction being an outcome of job satisfaction. Okay, let me take some questions. Any questions so far? As far as the outcomes are concerned. And by the way, these are just a few points that I enumerated. There are a number of them which are not here, but at this level, this should suffice. Okay, Rekon.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yeah, Rekon, go on.
Sir, the citizens' behavior,
Uh-huh.
I want to ask a question.
Okay.
You said that assuming you are in an office and your colleague is not around, and you rush into at least perform his duties whilst he's not around, whilst at the same time you also take up your own responsibilities to do. You said when you do that, it means you are exhibiting citizenship behavior.
It's a form of citizenship behavior.
Behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the same time, this same behavior is also not for only the employee, but also for the entire organization.
Yes.
Okay. The question is that why would the organization also benefit from that act? Is it because maybe the person has filled the vacuum for his absent colleague, and it has also, because of that, it has taken away the bad image that maybe a customer or somebody would have complained about the vacuum that has been created? Is that the reason why the entire organization is also benefiting from that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the extension from the individual, the employee level to the organizational level.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Please, any other question? Okay. Now let's look at, can you see my screen? Can you still see my screen? Hey, Stephen
Yes, sir.
Glo, I hope you are not also going to write on my screen, oh, because I can see your cursor moving on my screen. All right, now, so we have been so far looking at employee job satisfaction and its consequences or outcomes. Now, let's look at the reverse. When employees are not satisfied, or in other words, when employees experience job dissatisfaction, what do you think are some of the things that can happen? This one day, you know it better than me, Kra. So what do you think are some of the things that can happen when employees are dissatisfied with their job? Let me go up and see the hands. Martha, go on.
There's low productivity.
There could be, yes, low productivity. So it can affect the contribution of such employees to organizational success. Stephen.
Yes, sir. It also dwindles organizational profits.
It can feed into the profit motives of the organization.
Yes.
Is it Patricia? Patricia, is your hand up?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go on, Patricia. I can see your hand.
Yes, sir. Sabotage.
Okay, so how will it
they
lead
will
to sabotage?
you.
Are they sabotaging the company or who?
Yes.
Okay, because they are not satisfied. So that would be more or less like a payback.
Payback to bring you down.
All right, and that is what we construe as a counterproductive behavior. So the sabotage is a typology of counterproductive behavior. Thank you very much. Any other? So we are still on some of the consequences of employee dissatisfaction. I'm listening. Oh, when the doors will be brave because almost all of you are working. What are some of them? Yes, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
Go on.
Yes, sir. Employees can equally transfer the anger or agitations in them to the customers.
Very good. So it can also affect the way they serve customers. Rekon, is your hand up?
But now it's okay.
Okay. Hey, Moke can add an ensayo. It doesn't. Emanuela. Okay, Stephen Tete.
So it also makes our communities that.
You called me.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Stephen, go on. Stephen, go on.
It makes our communities and society also suffer, because if the employees of the organizations are dissatisfied, their production level will dwindle. And they will not be able to also perform as an organization and give back to society.
Okay, very good, very good. I like the way you are thinking. Oh no, so such a question when it comes in exams, it needs a ufeli, because what if you think about it small, you get something to write. Okay. Yes, Emanuela, do you have a contribution to offer?
Sir, mine has been said.
Hey, okay, you just say it in a different balance and let me see.
Sir, there will not be any cooperation among the workers.
Okay, there wouldn't be any cooperation among the workers. All right.
Yes, sir.
Rekon. Rekon, is your hand up?
Yes, the company also suffers organizational reputation.
Very
the
good.
reputation of the organization is It's brought down.
Yeah, it is felt, particularly if the ripple effects of employees' services towards the customers is very, very bad. Then it will be denting the image of the company. Any other? Gloria. Hello, Gloria. Gloria, is your hand up? Gloria, we can't hear you. On mute.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So you can speak now.
Yeah, there can also be frequent absenteeism at the workplace.
Thank you very much. Some of these things, you might not see in my slides, but it is equally important. When employees are dissatisfied, the motivation to even go to the workplace to go and work is also low. So the level, in fact, we are likely to experience not only absenteeism, but another phenomenon we call presenteeism. So in absenteeism, it means they will not show up at work to even contribute to organizational success. However, in presenteeism, they will show up all right. So physically they are there, but mentally they are elsewhere. Is it okay? Good. Prince Asari.
Sir.
Go on, Prince Asari.
Sir, labor turnover.
Very good. Labor turnover or employee turnover.
This is when a ratio of the number of employees leave the company because they are not getting what they need. And maybe being it motivation or being it their incentive, being it bonuses, and maybe them not benefit from their incentives. And
thank
also,
you very much. Thank you very much. Now, the turnover, that is one angle that you have explained. That's the ratio of people leaving, entering and leaving the organization will be high, particularly those that are exiting. But there could also be an instance where the turnover intention will be high. When we talk about turnover intention, it means that the employees are not actually exiting, but they are contemplating of exiting. So they are now looking over their shoulder to see which competing organizations their services will be accorded the needed respect and compensation. Okay, Gloria, is your hand still up? Gloria, is your hand still up?
Yes, sir.
So go on.
Yeah, I want to contribute, but I don't know. Procrastination of the employees.
Procrastination. It is also a possibility because the satisfaction is low. And so they will, in terms of procrastination, they will be using that time to engage in other judicious activities where they think their services will be desired, and it will bring the desired reward. So it is highly possible. All right. Now, so on the issue of, can you still see my screen? Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So as far as the impact of job dissatisfaction is concerned, it is the consequences are numerous. All that you said, in essence, if you write it for me, I will grant you the necessary marks it deserves. Now, okay, I still see some hands up. Recon, is your hand up?
No, sir. No, sir.
Gloria, is your hand still up? Okay, it's 10 down now. Stephen, is your hand up? Stephen Tete.
Sir, what happened is that central government and local government cannot collect their revenue as expected.
Precisely, because the productivity is going down and organizations are not making the desired profit. So the taxes that they hitherto were paying will all subside. Thank you very much. So the argument there, you can pull it from several angles as far as the consequences of job dissatisfaction is concerned. And please, if you do not find impacts and maybe in exams you are asked the consequences of job dissatisfaction, it's the same thing. And I said the outcomes of job dissatisfaction is the same thing. Felicity.
So I'm sure what Stevie wants to say is maybe stealing.
What? Stealing?
That's what you want.
As in theft and pilferage at the workplace. And they are all counterproductive work behaviors, which can occur as a result of employee dissatisfaction. So actually, counterproductive work behavior is one of the issues I treated. Counterproductive. So you see it over here. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Can you see counterproductive work behavior?
Thank you. Yes.
Good. And under counterproductive work behavior, we are basically referring to actions or inactions of employees which can undermine the progress or success of the organization. And what examples of these counterproductive work behavior include that stealing, sabotage. Someone also mentioned sabotage, and so on and so forth. Now, in fact, counterproductive work behavior, anchors and crowd, we have 4 main typologies of counterproductive work behavior. So the first one is what we call property deviance. The second one is also production deviance. Then the third one is political deviance. And the last one is personal aggression. All these types of counterproductive work behavior can occur as a result of employee being dissatisfied. Okay. All right. So even though they are not in the slides, when you are going over the video again, you will hear it and you can make your own research to update your notes. Okay. The specific types of counterproductive work behavior that I mentioned. Another outcome of employee job dissatisfaction is absenteeism. And then we'll be kind of that. Turnover will be kind of that. In addition to the turnover, you can also have turnover intention. So these ones, when it comes in exams, you should be able to write it very well for me, okay? Any question? Please, any question?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go on.
Sir, when we got to job satisfaction, you mentioned something like employee engagement, and you also said commitment, and you also mentioned job satisfaction.
Yes.
I wanted to know if these three things can be grouped together or they are synonymous to each other.
They are not synonymous. Sure.
The explanation, yes, sir, I'm coming. The explanation you give, because especially the commitment. If someone committed himself to whatever he's doing at his workplace, definitely and the explanation to the commitment, you were not really referring to what the person actually is doing in the company or the organization, but you were saying that the person admires to, sees the company and admires to join the company or something like that. So I was confused, especially with that commitment.
Oh, okay,
You can
all right.
take the slide back. I saw something there, but because the slide is not there, I'm not able to.
No problem. So I'll go back there. In fact, we are just wrapping up, so let's go. Is it the engagement or the commitment?
The commitment, yes.
All right. So when we say an employee is pretty much committed to their organization, there is an emotional attachment to ensuring that their organization succeeds in terms of achieving their goals and aspirations. So the underlying theme over there is the emotional attachment that they bring on board. Now, when we say an employee is engaged, it is an amalgamation of their level of commitment and level of satisfaction. And once again, if I were to be teaching you research methods or how to measure these things, and non differences now clearer. Because when we say we are measuring employee satisfaction, there are certain specific questions that we ask. When we say we are measuring employee commitment, there are also specific questions we are asking. But when we get to employee engagement, we tend to merge the questions, some of the questions from the satisfaction and commitment. So we are not only interested in their emotional attachment to the organizational success, and we are not also only interested in issues about their pay, satisfaction, work conditions, but the totality to give us a comprehensive perception of what is happening.
Okay.
In fact, at this level, I'm more there because me American is saying in literature, it is still an ongoing debate. Some authorities are of the view that we are just using semantics to measure the same constructs. So when you say someone is committed, to what extent is it different from engagement, and to what extent is it different from satisfaction? And this is an ongoing debate in literature, because some people are of the school of thought that because all these are abstract phenomena which we cannot see with our naked eye, it becomes pretty much difficult. So it is based on the questions that you ask, which will lend itself to one being committed, satisfied, or engaged. So don't worry, okay? Just read over it again, you'll be fine.
Thank you, sir.
Please, any other question? Any other question? All right, if there are no further questions, Steven, do you have a question for me?
Sir, please, can you go over again for me?
Which one? The one I just said.
Yes, there are absenteeism.
Okay, so I'm saying that, which one? Is it the commitment ones that I was referring to, or the absenteeism?
The absenteeism, sir.
Okay, absenteeism. So we are treating absenteeism over here as an outcome of employee being dissatisfied. In other words, when employees are dissatisfied with the job that they are doing, what are the possible negative repercussions that can occur? And research is indicating that absenteeism is one of the things or the consequences of a dissatisfied employee. This is the sense that if you are not satisfied with the job that you are doing, particularly when there is the knowledge, skills, and abilities you possess does not fit the job you are doing, but you are going to do it all the same because of the money, then at any point in time when you are going, you will not feel comfortable. So that is one way of looking at it. Another way is also perceiving the working environment being very much unfriendly and also fraught with a lot of health hazards. So if you are dissatisfied because the working environment is not conducive, then the tendency for people to be absent from the workplace is what's high. In the same vein, if the health and safety protocols at the workplace is not properly maintained, then it can result in a lot of accidents and ailments. So at some point in time, you will have a chunk of the employees going to take care of their health needs as opposed to attending to work to contribute to organizational success. Please, is it clear? So you can look at it from several angles, okay? And I also indicate that closely akin to absenteeism is a phenomenon we call presenteeism. Presenteeism is not in my slides. Presenteeism is not in my slide, but when you say the phenomenon of presenteeism is occurring, it means that the dissatisfied employee is showing up at the office all right. So physically they are present, but their mind and soul is elsewhere. Maybe at a particular place that they aspire to be at that point in time. So you realize in the end that the person's physical presence is not actually contributing to organizational success. They are just warding off time so that at the end of the month, you say, oh, they were present, and for that matter, they need to be paid for being present. So that is what we call presenteeism. Please, any other question? Any other question? Okay, if there are no questions, then we will end the lecture.